Hi, everybody. It's Dale Walsh, the Duck, Dewey Duck, and Jamar S. Russell, the Con, and we're here going through the Live Love program, which is a uh, 8-step program that to help self-awareness, grow self-awareness, and basically raise your consciousness. It's a program I've developed for the family caregivers of those with schizophrenia to help them break the cycle of codependency with their loved ones, but also to improve communication and actually, help the family caregivers regain their own self-esteem that they might have lost in the course of their caregiving. So, actually, that's what the program is, but just as a demonstration, J.S. Russell, poet, entrepreneur, genius, social media icon. Even though we might still be at the beginning. That's where we're going, right, Jamar? How are you?
Absolutely, I'm doing great. Glad to hear about that recent trip that you took. Did you want to share anything
All right.
about that?
Sure. Well, if you've been watching the recent episodes, you'll notice I had a different background. I'm back in Hackensack, and but after 3 weeks in Colorado Springs, Colorado, with my other podcast co-host Andrew Reinhold. The name of that podcast is the Do or just DEW, as in my initials, Dale Edward Walsh, Do Andrew Conspiracy. And so anyway, Andrew, who's the co-host of that, he lives in Colorado, and he came east to go to a chakra retreat in Atlanta, and then he stayed with his sister-in-law for a week, and then he came up to Hackensack, and we had a great time, and he actually saw the working mechanism of Teaneck Hackensack City, the holiest city, the high command, the highest court, the heavenly citadel, the hospital city, THC, that I built here in New Jersey. And he was very impressed, but even more impressive was the drive we had from Hackens, 2 night, 3 day drive from Hackensack back to Colorado Springs, where I just got back yesterday after 3 weeks of like total liberating liberation. And the one of the late highlights of the trip, Jamar, was we went to this hot spring. It was called Cottonwood Hot Spring. Do you know what a hot spring is?
Yeah, I have an idea.
Well, basically, it's like mineral waters that like bubble up from the earth. It's in the mountains, and I guess there's like a lot of volcanic activity and everything underneath. But anyway, like this water comes up, and not only is it like totally mineralized, so it's extremely good for you, but it's like heavenly to just like sit in. It's like it naturally is like about 90 to probably 110 degrees. So, and they have like 5 different pools that you can go in. So, you can like go from hot to hottest to coldest or whatever you want to do. And I think the coolest one was the coolest pool was 60 degrees, but there was actually a creek slash river behind this place, and that was 36 degrees, and I went in that too. But long story short, we spent like 2.5 hours there, and I came home, and we got home about 5 o'clock, and I just felt great. But so about 6:30, I said to Andrew, I'm going to go lie down, and the next thing I knew, it was 3 o'clock in the morning, and so I texted Rose with the Empress, and for 30 minutes, and then I went back to sleep till 9:30 the next day. It was like the longest sleep I've had basically since major medication.
Sounds good, man. Sound like it definitely was a trip, and I'm glad that you got to get out of Hackensack for a
Yep,
while. When was the
yep.
last time that you left Hackensack?
Well, actually, The last time last time was 2024, I think. Uh, yeah, I think it was 2024, and that was when I went to Las Vegas for the World Financial Group convention, and that was fun. And basically, World Financial Group was like the thing that got me out of Hackensack agoraphobia in the first place. But I was working as an insurance salesman. Basically, they called it a financial advisor, but it's basically an insurance salesman. And I went to not only two conventions in Las Vegas there, but I also went on a like personal group getaway to Lake Reno, and that was like very beautiful.
Okay.
But basically from like 2014 when my father died to 2023, I hadn't been on, or 2022, I hadn't been on a plane, and then I went to Reno.
Okay. Okay.
But and it was a perfect experiment because I had no anxiety, no nothing. All the bad things I was envisioning could happen did not. And, so that was like a very important lesson to learn. A lot of times the phantoms and the fears you have in your head are a lot stronger than the reality that you face.
Yeah, definitely. So what's the lesson or what's the letter for tonight?
Well, the letter for tonight is B. It's the second B, which is value. And that's where we not only consider where our lives are in terms of our own value, but also we look back and how the adversity or difficulties that we've gone through has added value to our life, and accumulating that value in the present moment. Where do we see ourselves going from here?
Okay. Okay. You got some poetry that you want to open us up with?
I do. This is from my last, and I'm working on getting a new collection. So, um, but as it stands, that I just was going through this when entering New Year of Dew, and I found these two poems, which were written basically 2 days apart in August 18th, 2018, and I'll just start with this first one. It's a love poem to someone who I know from Hackensack. And it goes, Diana is on the Dialina, which is my spaceship, of course. You are my only Latina princess. Your presence does the world bless. Beautiful is the sky at night when all stars show their light. But your spirit I adore, being reality which I live for. Though I'm just poet poor, trying to paint a verbal masterpiece, as you care for precious niece, for you fill me with hope, since with difficulties I daily cope, living in our quiet common hometown where you display your royal crown, and drive speedily in your car, even though you don't patronize bar, when I no longer drink beer, wanting only you to be near, so we can find bliss together, no matter how stormy the weather, because over my heart you reign, never feeling with you any pain.
So how many love poems do you got? Do you think you have, man?
3,500.
3,500. That's a whole lot of love, huh?
Whole lot of muse. Whole
Yeah.
lot of muses.
Whole lot of muses. That's what's up,
Yeah.
man. I ain't mad at you.
I've gone through all nine muses, Jamar, and I finally settled on the final one at the Empress Rose. So,
Okay.
uh, I mean, and she's a Latina, so this was sort of like foreshadowing Rose because actually, I'm still in touch with Diane. She's like a hometown sweetheart, but now she's engaged, and we run into each other every once in a while and everything. But she was the first Latina princess, but Rose is the Latina empress.
Okay. I got you. I got you. So, in the sake of value, I had two that I had in mind, but I think I can't recall whether I had um shared one or not. But I know this one I hadn't. So what I'm going to do is share this, and this is actually something that I performed a lot,
Okay.
open mic stuff like that. So it's titled Uncommon. Often on the compound, niggas will call me or say I look like Common. Even the CEOs will say, "You look like that actor," not having knowledge of Common Sense the rapper. I occasionally tell people, common sense ain't common. Due to different backgrounds and points of views, people just don't think the same. I even feel like that about Dude. The man that they say that I look like ain't common. And here's what I'm saying. Dude came from the hood, became a b-boy, rapped and made it to the silver screen. Mom moved me from the hood. I became a d-boy, sold crack and left a murder scene. In my opinion, oh boy is exceptional. Few have done what he did, playing roles the opposite of Paula Patton with her fine ass, having relationships with Erica and Serena with they beautiful, thick, bad asses, then having the good fortune of being part of hip hop and cinema classics. That's uncommon. Being a black man in prison, that's common. Being a distributor and user of narcotics, that's common. Leaving a woman behind to raise a child, that's common. Using violence and leaving a mama crying, that's common. I guess that makes me a common motherfucker, a common nigga. So when they ask, do you know who you look like? I answer for them, common, wishing I could be in his place, or like him, doing something better, using my words, performing in shows, being in commercials and motion pictures. Yeah, I wouldn't mind that at all. I don't mind being said to look like common. I just mind being a common nigga. I'd rather be uncommon.
And you'd rather be common, and that's where you're headed, Jamar. That's where
So
we're all
the
headed.
thing about that, like with the play on words, because of course Common, the actor, rapper, so forth. You know what I'm saying? Of course he's famous for, those things that I stated. But when people talk about like Common is
No,
not,
no, I
it's a play. And so when it comes to value, it's the man is actually uncommon for where he came from. And I'm saying as
right.
far as Chicago, making it out, doing the things that he was done. And, as far as where I was in a common place. When people saying that I look like Common, but I rather been uncommon like him. And that goes with the worth because I knew I was better than where I was. I knew
Right.
I was better than my mistake. I knew I was better than my mistakes because, a lot of my, wrongdoing had led me to, you know, that crime that I committed that took me away and, put me away for a lot of years. Also took the life of another young man. So it it was one of those things of reflecting, and that's the thing too. Like I didn't value human life to have done that, right?
Right.
Nor did I value my own, or to be doing a lot of the things that I was doing, and that's something that also isn't uncommon in where people, experience any sense of lack of worth, any sense of lack of value. They don't value their own lives as much, so how are they going to value the next person? Or even if they do value, it's not to where it's really respecting all lives. So
Right.
that's, one of those things that I had to sit back and really reflect on because I remember observing some of the behaviors in the county jail before I even made it to the state penitentiary. And I'm just like, these guys definitely don't value their life because some of the stuff that they were doing that I felt like was a violation to other people that could have cost them their life wasn't even worth much of anything. But um, it was some place that was different. It was some place that was predatory. So it's like I'm, if I'm the aggressor, I'm not worried about you doing anything to me because I'm viewing you as weak.
Right.
So it doesn't matter whether it was something worth something or not. And it could be vice versa, whatever, because um, I've been also the victim of people thinking or assuming that I was weak in some type of way because I wasn't like them or I was by myself rather than having numbers. And so these are all of the things that I set back and analyze to see human behaviors in that microcosm of a society and also to reflect and compare to that in the macrocosm of how society and how people still work. And we could say it like even with power plays, whether it be in politics or corporations, people are going to generally fear the majority, right?
Right.
When you get to a place though, like I was, when them people then took your life, give a damn about any of that. You know what I'm saying? Like, because it's like, it's not much to lose, and when being in that place, it's like, look, it's whatever. But yeah,
So yeah, that brings up a very interesting point that is sort of like how do you feel about like the system or I mean you've seen the justice system from the core of it, 12 years in Maryland State Prison and 2.5 in county jail and everything. And I've seen it in the mental health system, sort of different, but basically, uh, what I'm feeling is the goal of whatever rehabilitation or recover or therapy or whatever you want to call it is not only to maintain a state of victimhood in the person that's being examined or being punished to make them lose their self-esteem so they are powerless rather than like really going to the core. I mean, what you were talking about, the value of human life, I mean, if the more people value human life, then the less murder there will be, the less atrocities. I mean, it seems to me that that's a pretty basic equation. All the a lot if not most or all of the problems are of the world are basically result of not seeing the value of human life. And so, in my own experience, this is something that took me, is still taking me time to wrap my head around is, how everybody who was supposedly helping me was actually in that predatory situation with me where they were using me to the degree, and this might be paranoid. I admit this might be my paranoid schizophrenia, but basically, they were using my light to shine on their projects, and when the light would run out, they would like get greedy with my light. And that's basically when I'm talking about the dehumanizing situation of basically keeping people in victim status so that they're powerless to revolt.
so yes, that can be done with the institution, but it's still up to the individual, right?
Right.
And I say that because I think you had mentioned it like recently in the past episode of how you've transitioned from, you know, how you viewed yourself in all of that and start recognizing, your own power that you have
Right.
in everything. And that's what it takes. Like, no matter if, what I'm saying, you're incarcerated or whatever form of bondage. Now, my DLC number was 417724. My state ID number or SID, SID, whatever it is, 28000035. Subjected, those were numbers that I had to use. I was a number in the system. You know what I'm saying? And my value wasn't very much. Whatever the state facility might have gotten to house me or whatever that cost was to the state, um, I worked in Maryland Correctional Enterprises, which I made the state, money with, my labor, very, very cheap labor for them. I made, I went from making $26 a month to 140 a month, which isn't much to live on. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, but I managed a $3.2 million contract. So
Right.
you think about that. It's pennies on the dollars for what I made. So I understood, because of the 13th Amendment, right, that I can become a slave to the state. Basically, that's the amendment. Like, slavery was abolished unless you committed crime. And this
Right.
country was built off of stuff like that. Cheap labor, stuff like that. So, um, this is the stuff that I had to educate myself on because I put myself there.
Right.
It wasn't, nobody forced me to do anything in which I did, and see, accountability is a big part of it, but it's also recognizing my value because in those times that I, from either when I decided to start committing crimes or continue to commit crime, my personal value, I didn't hold myself to a very high self esteem.
Right.
Um, I experienced certain things in life that I considered failures or hard times, and I couldn't see it for myself. Though I knew I was better, it was difficult for me to actually prove that. So that is something. However, for people that don't take the time to educate themselves, to acknowledge their own value, then yeah, they will remain, in the victim mentality because they'll blame the state, they'll blame the federal system, they'll blame
They'll
whatever
blame
else.
everybody but themselves.
Huh?
They'll blame everybody but themselves.
Exactly. Now, in a situation where there is certain illnesses or different mental complications, I don't know exactly how, um, like, you can avoid everything because then there's more to have to figure out,
Right.
because it's who who diagnoses themselves, who can
Right.
figure out, when it's so much going on and see what I've experienced is not only, um, a lot of people dealing with their own mental health issues, but also, them dealing with the addiction from self-medicating to address those things that they were going through.
Well,
Trauma, all of this stuff. It's a lot to have to deal with, and without actually knowing or having the tools, it can be one of those things where it's like you're dealing with a lot more difficulties to not, and where you can't
well,
really take or have the mindset where you're taking accountability for stuff because you're not seeing it clearly.
you're bringing up a like extremely excellent point, Jamar, which is how the mental illness portion of the population has now become almost in inexplic interminably involved with mental illness in the justice department, justice
Definitely.
system, because basically so many people with serious mental illness are being treated as criminals that that the system is totally overloaded. There aren't enough therapists or anything, and we've talked about like my own feelings about like the weakness of therapy and everything. But basically, the 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 mentally ill have been like become so intertwined with the criminal that it's like is becoming impossible to differentiate the two. I meant to say that L.A. County Jail is the biggest asylum in the world. Just because like 70% of the people in there are mentally ill, and it's like I think that's why. this is like a very important podcast for people to listen to because we are dealing with the same basic core problem of like dehumanization and self-awareness between I'm doing it through a mental health situation, but you're doing it through the perspective of someone who's gone through the who's really experienced the justice department system. And what your value, you know, obviously you have the value, you've had the value to educate yourself and to write yourself to freedom. But what would you say would be the primary like value or couple of values that got you through your darkest hour?
So, I mean, I one of the things that I think helped me is being pointed out early as far as having intelligence, right? So I held on to that. You know, I remember in preschool being singled out to do some type of math problem at a graduation. I was salutatorian, preschool, and valedictorian. Didn't even know what none of that stuff was, but it was something that gave me value, so I held on to it. And as I went from DC to Maryland schools, I got into, I guess, tested into what is called the Talented and Gifted program. So I
Right.
held on to that. That gave me value because it's like, okay, I can learn and show myself as far as doing stuff academically. Same when it came to like sports. If I could be good at something, it's stuff that I will hold on to because these are things that help with my esteem rather than when I didn't have the clothes or didn't have the money. Those are things that went against because culturally that might make you feel a certain way or when you're comparing yourself and knowing that other people may have. So it became a battle. But see, that's stuff that people deal with and it all depends on the individual as to when they start valuing themselves other than whatever some others person's judgments are. And for me, I definitely in prison I developed a fuck it mentality. Like
Right.
I really ain't. I stopped caring when I start realizing that my peers like your value, what you saying don't matter if you ain't here with me. Like you can't
Right.
get
Right.
me out, you know. And if you not no someone is where I'm trying to be, you ain't got no money for me, you ain't got like why I care about what you think and that's something that I don't think is enough taught to like the youth. Like to realize like look, if they're your age, it's a good chance that they don't know no more than you do.
Right.
Some
Right.
people might, depending on what they've been exposed to, but you're pretty much on the level playing field. And for real, that's kind of how things are in humanity itself. For those that invest into themselves more will be, you know what I'm saying, better off. They will know more. They will have certain advantages that others, you know, and that's really when I start having a different perspective of those things. But everything that you were talking about as far as the prison and the those with mental health issues, like yeah, that's right. Cause I remember reading, and don't quote me, but I think a lot of institutions were closed in the 70s or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So
That was no. It's when Reagan got in.
yeah,
He
so
like passed all these laws, basically limiting the size of mental hospitals, and basically closed down a lot of like long term, like big mental hospitals, and the idea was to get these people reintegrated into society and everything, but of course it was a total failure and it just like turn
Um,
thousands of people in asylums out on the streets where
I really believe that, when those that are in power represent us look at bottom line rather than looking at investing into the citizens, they do a huge disservice. Because if you're
well,
able to
that's where
invest in your,
corruption comes from.
excuse me,
That's where corruption comes from.
and see, that's the thing, like, overall, you'll win. If you invest in the population and making sure that the population does better, we all do better as a whole. There is no loss. Sure, of course you have those that want to take advantage of the system, but that's few and far in between. I mean, because generally the majority of people want to do right. Like, I have come across people that um, they wanted to take advantage of the system a certain way, and it's such a turn off because it's just like you don't want to do for yourself. You rather be lazy. You want to take advantage of this versus, and that stuff that right there leads to something else. But of course, this is what I've observed and while I was in prison. Problems take care of themselves, and
Right.
what I mean by that is if there was somebody on the tier and they might have been loud, obnoxious, or doing some other stuff or anything that was, you know, seemed questionable to me. To me, it was just a matter of time. Either they was going to go to jail in jail, which was the whole, gets transferred out, or somebody was going to bust they behind. You know what I'm saying? So in those either way in those three situations, eventually they'll take care of themselves and remove. And it's like that here when you have people that are trying to take advantage of something or doing something wrong and stuff like that, like eventually you get caught or get caught up in there. You know what I'm saying? So there's no winning that. And there's other things that have to be invested in, and I'm not talking about just as far as money, is with the resources and the information so people can do better for
Right.
themselves. But as long as you have classism, sexism, racism, different prejudices,
Ageism.
yeah, all of the above, then you're not having people that care. And so all of this stuff, and that was definitely one of the things that I wanted to make sure while I was in prison and even now is to make that a humanitarian issue. Like, you got to think about how you treating people. Because this is one thing for sure. People have release dates. Do you want
Right.
them next to your grandmother that could potentially bust her over the head and take her? You know what I'm saying? Take her. So you gotta like let's invest in people becoming better people rather than letting them
Same
just be in
time.
there learning how to be better criminals. Which that it's a school one way or the other, whether you look at it, right? You'll have them either learning how to become better men or women or becoming how to be better criminals because it's in there. It's in there. It's just a matter of choice. And if and when people learn to invest more into the rehabilitative services or projects, education, then you'll have a lot more better people come out because I've seen a standard of men that have came home from prison that is different from some of the standard of men that are out here because one when you just around men that's some people uh, certain situations certain institutions they call them gladiator school because
Right.
it's it ain't gonna be a whole lot of soft stuff. You're gonna have to get busy, and I mean, you're gonna have to conduct yourself a certain way if you want that type of respect. Because if you don't have respect in those places where you don't have a plethora of money or
There's
guns
no
and stuff,
culture.
then it's nothing else. That has to, your respect is what's going to speak for you. But
Right.
outside of that, then there's nothing. So that's a whole nother currency of value. So when people understand that and they like, this is how I conduct myself, this is how my character should be, this is how it's going to speak for me. Because if it's anything else, then I'm gonna get carried. I'm gonna be disrespected. I'm gonna be disregarded. then it's something different. So there can be a whole population that can come out here better. And also there can be a whole population that is raised up better, right?
Right.
So what had happened, especially in black and poor communities, was the crack epidemic had such an effect on folks, taking the men away to
Right.
incarceration or addiction, that there weren't a
Cool.
large enough amount of men to set a standard for young
Right.
males, and the wrong examples were glorified through rap movies or just people being misguided. So you had that, so when you have that, and then other people trying to escape their situations through self-medicating, is going to look crazy. And the whole thing is to be able to give people the tools to learn that they do have value, that they do have a purpose in the
Right.
world, that they do have something to contribute, you know. So it's it's one of the things that I'm working on continuously.
Well, the other thing is we gotta like pull back the brake on society's rush to judgment. I mean,
Oh man.
especially with mental illness. I mean, people go psychotic, and everyone around them freaks out, and there's a big problem, and I get put in the hospital for 13 weeks, and then I go to a program for 5.5 years, and then I try to go back to my life, but everything's changed and everything. But you know, but but this rush to judgment, I mean, a prime example that I use is when I got sick, you had to manifest symptoms for 6 months before you got a diagnosis of schizophrenia. But now, say you take a gram too much of mushrooms, go to the hospital, and they immediately diagnose you as schizophrenic. And it's crazy. I mean, really. I admit that basically I was on an LSD trip when I got taken away from Dartmouth, but I've always come back to myself. I've
Mm.
always come back to Dale, and it was like an insane escalation of whatever you want to call it. I mean, whether you want to call it like parental concern or you want to call it authority fear. But when I busted out of Dartmouth, and and they had no place to put me, so they just tried to make me think, devalue me and say that I was insane because I came up with my "I'm God" joke, which I really meant, which if in normal Dale time would have like blown over in probably like 3 days, but no, it took 50 years to get over it. But now I am, and I'm just glad I made it.
See, but that's another thing, right? So not only do you have that when whether it's a LSD trip, whether it's a PCP trip, or anything else that can cause a chemical imbalance for a while, it's still something that people should pay attention to before they just lock a person away or
Right,
judge them or do whatever, because this all happens. But then there are the things that, okay, once you've done that, then people just keep on doing that, and they keep judging you or classifying you as that, which is crazy because we've been
right,
talking for a while, and I already know your level of intelligence, which is beyond a lot of other people's. But so as it takes time to get to know folks. I was speaking to a man just Monday. um he done 31 years. 31 years. And he was explaining about how he was, and I said, "Look, bro, you got to change the narrative because all they're doing is judging you on what you did. But that was
right,
31 years ago. You're not that same person." I went to court in support of somebody, and the judge brought up what that man had did 5 years and 4 months ago, and not taking into account all of the work that was done in between
Right.
that. So if the man had done and completed a program in which I was co-facilitating, that he decided that it was good for him to invest in himself and participate. Imagine all of the stuff that the man had done that served 31 years, but you're still looking at what they did as children.
Exactly.
And that's the
And
thing that's so crazy is like, why do why do people in the system continuously convict a person for what they've done in the past? And that's all it is you putting a person on the trial again, which
right.
trial is a very traumatic experience if you like
Right.
you've never been like this is what happened in my reentry process, right? I had just came back from going through post conviction evidentiary hearing, which we pretty much had to go through other stuff. I had to speak on the stand as far as what I felt um, was given as evidence or what wasn't. And then not only that, I'm basically going through a lot of stuff dealing with my trial. So I went through two trials because I had a mistrial, which was already um, hard in itself because, of course, I got felt guilty and could potentially face life plus 20, 30, whatever they could have given me, but I had my second trial, which was a violation, which the state violated, but the state was rewarded. And generally when we think in life, okay, you violate, there's a penalty, right?
Right.
But not only was we had another trial, but they were able to get another witness and have another testimony to help convict me, right? Which I'm like, how is this fair? Learning that life
Right.
isn't fair and that the law is ambiguous and it, favors the side of the state or the government. And so, of course, this is my opinion. Other people
Right.
may differ. This is just what I experienced.
Opinions
Then,
expressed here are the opinions of those who express them.
yeah, and so then it was going through this post conviction where it was shared that, and I knew that it was inefficient, effective counsel because my attorney failed to investigate my intoxication level, which would have made it second degree instead of first degree,
Right.
right? And that could have been used as a defense in addition to what he, what I'm saying, used as a
Right.
defense, which I didn't know any of this because layman people don't know the law. Just
Right.
like anybody else that goes into any type of crisis or um, situation, you don't know medicine, you don't know, what can actually help you or what the
Right.
rules
Right.
are. And this is something that I think is predatory on people because even in that time, you don't know where to start. Because if you didn't go to school for medicine or law, how would you know going to a law library or looking up something what to get? So um, I had to go through all that process and then wait on a decision. So
Right.
after that whole process, I was so drained and so much because it took a long time for those that helped me.
Now, this is when you're coming up for parole, or
Nah, this was just my post conviction hearing. So this is one of the
oh,
rights that I retained by going to trial. So
okay.
even it took years for those to help me to actually file and go in for this. So all of this work for it to relive that. So when I'm going through the reentry and they was talking about um, that there's a phase of the reentry where they had to consult with the victim's family, and I had
Right.
already been through a modification and sentencing, knowing that the victim felt that I should have life without the possibility of parole. I'm just like, I'm not going through that again, because I
Right.
already had gave my apology. I gave this, and I mean, I spoke as much as I could about the situation on how it wasn't supposed to happen. So I didn't feel the need to be persecuted
Right.
or convicted again. So when going to that young man's modification, it was just one of those things where it was just like, I've been through this. He got a similar result when I did in my modification. The judge took a year
Right.
off to give me another chance to go up, which I was thankful for. But it's a lot to deal with when it's like that was done. But still, I understand on the other side too when a victim's family may have lost a loved one, or even if it wasn't that, in that man's case, there was no loss of life, there was just loss of maybe possession,
Right.
which that can be replaced. You know what I'm saying? So if a person then served 5 or whatever years, like, how do we, and this goes back to value, how do we value the years of life versus that? Like,
Right.
if it's stolen property or robbery, yeah, sure. The trauma that somebody may have felt and stuff like that. But how do we actually justify the time and stuff? And there's guidelines that may not always fit a crime.
Right.
And then there's some point there has to be some type of compassion, with second chances, because it's one thing if a person isn't doing any work in there and they can't show it. But it's something else when a person is doing the work. So in Maryland, we have this place called Patuxent, right? Patuxent has a lot of program in which they help with therapy and stuff
Is
like
that
that.
prison or?
Yeah, it's prison, but they do a lot with
Right.
therapy and mental health and stuff like that, and that's supposed to be something that's better for people that come through.
Right.
I wasn't there, but that's supposed to be so. If a person is in this setting where they're able to, excuse me, get the help and they're taking advantage of the help, then I would think that would make a person more likely to be able to get another chance to
Right.
transition if they're taking advantage of the services. So that's the things that, have to be taken aware of. It's just like if a person decides to take, some type of medicated aided treatment or something. You know what I'm saying? It's
Right.
like if they're taking the initiative and engaging in the therapy and working on it, then why would you ostracize them or treat them any less than, you know? So,
Well, just getting back to the first point, which is the stigma of the sentence, and basically being seen as a con in the first place, no matter how much you do afterwards. Uh, but that's like emphasized with mental illness, because mental illness, I mean, you do the crime, you serve your time, and you get out, and ideally it's finished. Then you have like, okay, that's it. And even though that might not be the case, that's the mindset you can go into it with. But with mental illness, not only do you have the constant reminder of like your therapy and what your family, you know your family, no matter how much they try, are thinking of you as a mental case most of the time. And that makes them very protective, very, very like concerned about you all the time and everything. But I've gone through 15 hospitalizations by myself. I mean, no family member ever visited me in the hospital, and so it's just sort of like you know basically I'm not a mental case.
yeah,
I've never been psychotic. I made a joke.
yeah.
I said I was joking.
Say
I
I
said
like
I was
drugs.
honest. It was a joke.
Yeah,
Get over it.
yeah,
But it's been 50 years, and yeah, hey, did you ever see Dumb and Dumber?
yeah.
There's a great clip at the beginning. No, Dumb and Dumber 2.
Hmm.
Did you ever see that?
Yeah, I watched them.
There's a great clip where at the beginning where Jeff Bridges comes up to Jim Carrey in a wheelchair with a giant beard in a mental hospital, and Jeff Bridges like sort of like goes, he's been coming for 20 years. Every day or every Wednesday to visit his friend in the mental hospital, and Jim Carrey's basically like this, and so long story short, after like 5 minutes, Jeff Bridges says, "I can't come anymore. I gotta go. Take care." And Jim Carrey goes, and Jeff Bridges comes back and, did you say something, buddy? Did you say something? And Jim Gary goes, I got you! And he goes, what do you mean? He says, I got you so good. You mean you've been faking this for 20 years? Absolutely. And it's like, why didn't you just do it for 10? It wouldn't have been as good well, 10 would have been fine, but 20 is even better. So that's like the premise of the movie and everything. But
Yeah.
basically, I feel like I was faking it for 50 years and now I'm out of the asylum.
Yeah, man. Well,
Like,
I'm glad that you enjoying everything or doing things and then having the option to because I've been around some people and they're considered or been told to be career criminals, which they going in and out of those institutions and they've been doing it for, some time. And sure, they could have had um, a change somewhere, but their environment, whether it was in the institutions or in their neighborhood or their stuff, wasn't conducive to that. And they become a product of that environment. And
right.
it's like, they ain't getting those type of chances. So, but
Well,
that's a
the other
whole nother thing.
well, the other I mean, this is what I feel about it is, you find value in whatever you do,
Hmm.
and a lot of people find value in crime because it gives them advantages, it gives them benefits that basically society, I mean, however they get it, if you got a lot of money and you got a lot of power, you got like, you got like a scam to that's going to bring you $1 million, then you know
A lot
that
of
that
times it's not even values that much, but crime and that lifestyle has its own addiction, its own
right,
thing, its own thrill, adrenaline boosts or endorphins when people, get to certain things. So there's certain things too that have to be addressed, as far as thinking, cognitive behavior and stuff like that, and everything that comes around, along with it. There's places that I've been and I've seen. It's just like if you're even in those environments, it's amazing that you make it. So we talked about like your location in Jersey, right? So I was in for Thanksgiving. I was in Camden. You know, yeah,
yeah.
I got family in Camden. Uh, Not the best place, what I'm saying? But I've been going to Camden since I was a young child.
It's
Huh?
like one of the five worst cities in America.
So there you go. So if you think about how an environment is, just to think about that impact of the environment on the citizens in those spaces. You still have those that figure out a way to thrive and succeed, but it still has its impact because you have a high level of poverty, crime, drug abuse, and things that you'll see where you won't see everywhere else.
Right.
Go to another part of New Jersey, none of that'll be looking like that, right? So same thing in this area. Um, I'm in Maryland in PG County, Maryland. Then you go to certain places in this county or in DC, where a lot has changed in DC, but there's things that in those environments, especially for a child or a youth coming up and they're trying to survive or get over, then everything else that goes on when somebody's predatory or the predators that are in those environments. There's a lot of trauma that has to be dealt with. Um, who knows about the amount of abuse and neglect that comes along with that? So
Right.
when a person, becomes or behaves a certain way, sometimes you have to ask the why before you just condemn. Because everybody is not just crazy for just no reason. Like something has
Right.
happened. And that's the thing though about uh, judgment, and it has people should be a lot more slow to judge on things,
Exactly.
right? I crazy story though, that has to do with something else, but it tells about the environment. So I'm in prison and I'm speaking to my cousin. I'm speaking to my aunt. My cousin is in the jail, in DC jail. Something happens where he gets stabbed. So I asked my aunt, well, what did he do? She goes off, what do you mean? What did he do? He do nothing. So she's not understanding what I know. People just don't get stabbed for nothing. You
Right,
did
right,
something, like you
right,
violated or something like that. And even if it was a situation where you may have not did something wrong and somebody even tried to rob you, and that just because you bucked or decided to fight back and stuff like that, that's where I'm looking into, because there's people don't catch random stabbings. Like, you definitely got to be in the wrong place and somebody swinging, you just get stabbed by a mistake,
right, right,
which that happens less. Like, you get people that get random bullets, but you got something else just flying. You know what I'm saying? At a high
right,
velocity, it can hit anybody if people are around. So
right.
it's just something else that's different, right? So it it shows the different cultures, different mentalities of when people get into talking. Because what I know intimately, she doesn't,
Right.
and she's going from that aspect. So you know
Well,
something.
as Andrew says, she's coming at it from her experience, and
Mhm.
you're coming at it from your experience, and
Exactly,
you
exactly,
have
exactly.
experience is what defines your perspective and your perception. So,
Exactly, exactly. And it's not that either one of us was wrong, but it's just a matter of, are we going to sit down and listen to each other, or you just going to fly off because of how you feel? We're not talking about how you feel right now. I asked a question. If you couldn't answer the question, that's fine. You could have asked me, well, why did you say that? And I could have
right,
explained it. You know what I'm saying?
exactly.
So,
Respond, don't react.
yeah. So that's another thing that, I mean, just has to be worked on. But a lot of this comes from exposure, information, education, and when we get better at getting all of that out to people so that they can be equipped with the tools, then we'll be good.
So, shall we? Just about time. Jamar, shall we close with a poem each? How's
Sure,
that?
let's do that.
I'm going to do off the flip page of Diana on the Dialinus goes, truthful to myself and others. Many people say I am courageous because I have an illness outrageous, only coping with hand I've dealt while accepting the deaths of Svelte, who was love of my life I wanted to make my wife. But that obviously will not occur despite fact she was divinely pure. Though now gone for 30 years, I miss more as mortality nears, while trying to keep happy face in holiest city that's my base, where I've spent entire adult existence, which has been quite an experience, getting to know many dear friends as I went through fashionable trends of drugs I shouldn't have done, although they were lots of funs, and truly I have few regrets having won most of my bets.
I'm trying to think.
That one you asked me about, it, even if it's a repeat, I remember it is a very good one. So maybe you just want to do that one again.
I actually was gonna do something a little bit different, since we was talking
Okay,
about
cool.
yeah,
Very
like substances and abuse and stuff like this. This is titled Toxic Relationship. This is my history with you. Exciting before I know what I do, before you do, or I do because you don't. I won't act like it's not me when I make the choice to drink. I think back to grabbing my mother's cup. Oh shit, what was that stuff? I don't know when it was that Reckon I was sipping the peach schnapps, but I do know Aunt Marcia kept 40s of bull in the basement fridge. No, that's what it is. Benny with peach Cisco. I was like 5. Damn, hit my head on a radiator. Bam! Here I am in the can. Hit a nigga 10 times. Bam, bam, bam. I don't remember the rest. Vaguely. Victim family hates me. I don't blame them. What the fuck I done? What the fuck? I was high and drunk. Should have took my drunk ass in the house. But he wanted to fight and kept saying stuff out of his mouth. I tried to apologize and wanted to leave the shit alone. But a bad situation turned worse. And now Slim is gone. Still, it's me and you doing this dance. Though I know you ain't no good, I seem not to be through. I'd take a break and even slow down. But the fact is it's scary because too much of you will surely bring me down. I've tried to back up like this is it for me. But it seems we keep getting back together. Shit, we got history. So,
Beautiful.
I guess that's a tale of what alcoholism or still battling with drink and stuff like that. But yeah, that was one of those things I wrote while I was in, you know.
Right. Well, I've always said THC is the best mistress I ever had.
Yeah. Well,
Okay, well, Jamar, great session. And next week, next session, we'll be back with the final letter of the Live Love program, which is Express, and we'll just like sort of like look back, summarize, and see what comes out of it. But it's always fun, and just in case you're interested, you can also tune in to me at the DEW Andrew Conspiracy, and also, what about you, Jamar? How can they get in touch with you? And I've been very lax on putting this in the show notes, and I apologize. But
yeah, me as well. Instagram JSRussell56, YouTube JS Russell. Then you can also write in Freedom on Facebook or JS Russell on Facebook. I believe it's JS Russell 5 on TikTok and JS Russell maybe is it 0 on no, JS Russell 000 on X. So
oh, you got an X account. How's that going?
I don't know. I don't use it that much.
I'll pay attention.
You know, I try my
I
hand with all of this stuff and see how it goes, man.
I got almost 3,000 followers on TikTok.
Yeah, I gotta get with it. I gotta get busy, man.
Yeah. But we'll figure that out later. But yeah, so have a great time, and just